right. We are going to talk about being a voice actor, but also the other side of that from the game dev side, casting voice actors and the whole selection and casting process. So you get both sides of that. And we'll dive a little more into the voice acting side than the game development side. But
Certainly.
the interaction of the two and how we can all work together and help each other out is what we're here for. And at the end, we're going to look at one of the finalists for the script competition, and
Yes.
have a little fun with that.
Sounds perfect. So now, to get things started for this presentation, Ian, I want to be a voice actor. What do I need to do?
Well, that's a great question, Bob. The process of becoming a voice actor is not easy. I mean, we all make funny voices. What just happened? We lost our stream.
I don't know that. It looks good to me. Yeah.
Yes. All right. It's not.
Oh,
Not,
there
it's
we
not
go.
changing. Did it change?
Yeah, I see.
Okay.
Casting,
Well, then
auditioning, creating a voice.
I will just roll with it. Okay. So yes. So in today's session, we're going to talk about casting and auditioning, that interchange between the game developer and the voice actors. But from the voice actor side, you need a lot to do that. You can't just jump in. It's like you can't just pick up a guitar off the wall and jump on stage with a rock band and do a killer solo without knowing how to hold the guitar, what the chords are, music theory, and so forth. So get your foundation, get your basics, and then the voice process. That actually starts with good coaching. So just like anything else, you want to know how to do it, you want to know what to do, and how to improve. And as someone jumping into the field, you don't always have a good barometer on that. So work with the people who have been around a while, get some input and guidance from those who have been there before, as they say, and that will help your journey quite a lot. And
This 30-second plug brought to you by the Neighborhood Studio, where we help aspiring creatives become working creatives. We are a teaching and production studio, and we take care of all your post-production needs. Seriously, I had to throw that in, Ian, because what you're talking about is exactly what I teach. And again, you've experienced that, so you know. Again, you're teaching it now. I'm really happy to see this because it's an honest, real, candid look at what it takes to be a voice actor. Just the other day, for preparation for this, we were discussing it's not easy. It gets easier, but it's not easy. It's never easy. You make it look easy, right? It's like a glacier, right? You only see the top 10% of what's above the surface, but the other 90% of the glacier below the surface, think like a duck, right? Just be cool and chill and cruise along the surface of water, but paddle like heck underneath.
that's right. Well, let's jump a little into the presentation, if you don't mind. Just a quick disclaimer. These are ideas and concepts that work for me or for Bob. They may not work for you. Hopefully they will, and hopefully you'll get something out of it. There's some artwork in here that was graciously donated by some artist friends. So please recognize that that's proprietary and don't borrow it from them. And learn something, enjoy. And if you have questions, I don't know that we're set up for questions like this, but you will have our contact info and you can reach out to us afterwards.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's start with casting voice actors. So let's say you're developing a game, you're producing a commercial, starting a Kickstarter, and you want some voiceover, however you engage with the voice acting profession. How do you cast them? So that's kind of where we're going to start with an overview of the casting process. So first you have to determine what the roles are, roles, write the script, determine your budget, make sure you have enough budget, the recording parameters, outreach to the voice actors and vice versa, receiving and reviewing auditions, which is kind of a job on its own, and then finally the selection. And that could be multiple rounds. You may narrow
Yes.
down to your top 5 or your top 2 or whatever, and ask for further readings from them.
Yes. I want to go ahead and point out that when it comes to defining the roles, obviously, when it comes to game development, you're going to have who the players are. You're going to have who the NPCs are. You're going to have the world that you're building. You want to make sure that that you allocate enough voices to go around. Granted, budget is going to have a large impact on that, but you definitely want to make sure that you think of that, because you want your game to be as realistic as possible. Even though it's a game and it's a simulation or it's a complete and total escape, you still want to make that world that you build and create as realistic as possible. So, talking about determining and defining roles, Ian.
Yes. So when you define the roles let's just use the game example. So when you define the roles there, try to be as specific as you can. You have a vision. You've developed the game. You've designed it from scratch, and
Yes.
it's near and dear to your heart. Make sure you clearly define what it is you're looking for. Personality of the characters, relationships between them and the others in the game, or relationship between them and the player, perhaps if they're an NPC. You know them best, so that information has to come out of your head and get onto a piece of paper or electronic version of that, so that the actors, the casting directors, anybody that's involved in the process knows as much as you do, so they can get you the actors that best fit your vision.
Yes.
So if you have it in your head but it's not articulated, they won't know to try to meet that parameter.
Mm-hmm.
Really important. Another piece that can help is artwork, and we'll talk a bit more about that later when we get to the VO side. If you've got a voice in mind, I want them to sound like Clint Eastwood. So if you want to have a particular voice, provide a link to that so they know what you're talking about. And if you're not quite sure, that's okay too. That's totally cool. Maybe this, maybe that, I'm not sure. Let the voice actor know that too, or the casting director. Let them know that there's flexibility, and they may surprise you with something really cool that you never thought of. So the goal there is to help the voice actors bring your characters to life in the way that you want them.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving right ahead into scripts. So, when you're ready to engage voice actors, have your script solid. And proofread it too, or maybe have somebody else read it just in case, because you don't want to record something, have someone record it and it's wrong and has to be changed later. So that's re-recording, that's extra time, extra expense, and hassle that nobody needs. So, like when you're dealing with wood, they say measure twice, cut once. Same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also realize that when you put together that script from a game developer side, right, for this game narrative, for instance, all the scripts look like flowcharts. And even though it looks like a flowchart for you, you want to make sure that you put that into a script format for the actor who is not familiar with game development, because that was something that was different for the actors auditioning for this process for us. So make sure that the script format translates effectively. And so that's another reason why you want to make sure you get another set of eyeballs to look at your script, to help proofread it, and then to help make that transition from flowchart form to the actual presentation form.
Yeah, very good point. Because we are all used to looking at projects from our own point of view.
Yes.
And so if you're a game developer, let's say you give the player a choice. They have A, B, and C. Depending on what they choose, different events may happen, or you might get a different response from an NPC or the game itself. If it's an animation or a movie or something, there's a script. It's linear. A, then B, then C, then D. It goes in a row, and there's no variation off of that. But with gameplay, you have that flexibility. So just bear in mind the other person's point of view when you're printing that stuff or preparing it for the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that, one thing you can do that will really help is to try to read the lines yourself before you send them over.
Out loud, not just in your mind. Read them out loud. There's a difference between mentally reading and verbally reading. We read and comprehend slower when we're listening to others versus when we're reading for ourselves. So it's extremely important that you read your script out loud. Okay.
Absolutely. You might have put a sentence in there that's one whole paragraph long, and imagine the poor voice actor trying to read that whole thing all in one breath. I mean, just or the words don't necessarily flow so well together. Or you may have used the same word multiple times in the same couple of sentences. So you get that repetitiveness that you wouldn't notice unless you read it out loud. So that can be really helpful. And then lastly, in this category, when you send the information over, I would recommend an excerpt of the script so that the voice actor and the casting director and so forth sees all the interaction and the behind the scenes. Oh, so-and-so walks in and they say this, rather than just 3 or 4 lines with no context. And if you you might have the context in your head, but they certainly won't unless you provide it to them. So I don't know how many times I've gotten scripts, and we were talking about this just the other day, where you have these lines, but you don't know what happened before, what happened after, who you're talking to, what the relationship is. So you're sort of working in a vacuum with no information and doing your best, of course, but I have to imagine the people on the other end of that listen to the audition going, well, this wasn't at all what happened. The wind blew the window open. Not somebody walked in, but they didn't know that. Whatever the situation.
Or if it's combat, or if it's a stealth mission, or if it's any different type of scenario at different points in your game, and all you're doing is just, for time's sake, you're pulling lines from different points of your game, but you're not giving any context. Well, the actor's not. If they're inexperienced, they're usually not going to know what's happening. Typically, that's what separates inexperience versus experience, because they have an idea of, or they can interpret, or they can imagine for themselves what this line might need. But again, help them as much as possible. Give them some context clues. Make sure you remember to do that. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. If you told somebody, hey, build me a house, they would build you a house, but it may not have the right number of bedrooms you want, or
yes.
Just imagine how hard it would be to build a house without a floor plan. So
yes,
something like that. Okay, so not to belabor the point. Smite the giant. Right. So budget planning. This is really, really important. So as someone who's hiring a voice actor, there are standard rates for the industry. And if you're getting, big name Hollywood actor or whatever, it's probably going to be more than that. But there are standard rates for the industry. And if you don't know them, you can look for the GVAA rate guide as a starting point. And we have a link to that later in the presentation. And as they say in so many things, you get what you pay for. If you pay a small amount, that's the quality you're going to get. And so build it into your budget from the beginning. Keep in mind also that part of that industry standard is a minimum number of hours per session. So you think, oh, it's just like 5 lines. I'm only going to pay whatever. I don't even want to throw a number out there. Yeah. But there's a minimum number of hours that people are.
Generally 2. You're generally going to pay somebody 2 hours, a minimum for a session. Well, otherwise, your minimum might be 1 hour for a session. But understand, that might be $500 for that 1 hour. Some people might have a 2-hour minimum, right? Usually, whether they're driving to a studio or even if we're working from home, we still have to allocate time. Again, just like you as an artist, as a performer, as a creator, as a designer, as a developer, as a coder, you have an hourly rate. So do voice actors, and you want to respect that. You want to respect their craft, their professionalism, their time that they put into it. Granted, you might have a limited budget, but make sure that you're investing in your game because you want it to be the best that it can be. Understand that actors are doing the same thing, so pay them a decent wage to make sure that your game has a decent sound quality to it. And don't just think of it as, oh, we'll just get whoever we can, because it's not going to have the same weight, right? Again, Some of my characters are iconic. I can proudly say that as the voice of Balrog in Street Fighter, as the voice of Shao Kahn, as the voice of Baraka in Mortal Kombat, those sounds, those game fighting sounds are iconic. You're going to remember the rest of your life how many times you rage quit because of how taunting my mocking laughter was, right? It took a lot to get to that point. You want to make sure that you understand your game has the same power to affect other people if you bring it right. If you make sure that the graphics look phenomenal, if you make sure that the voice quality is there and you don't just cheat on that budget part because you don't care, or just think we'll just leave out sound. A game without sound is like a movie without sound, and sound is, nobody talks about it, but sound is 60% of a movie. Sound matters for your game too, and you have to realize that. And so you have to make sure that you think like that as well, because sound is how we create verisimilitude. And that's what's really, really important when it comes to the quality and the character of your video game.
Absolutely. Yeah. So something else to consider is, do you want to hire union versus non-union voice actors? You may have a different rate there. Mm-hmm. And other costs to consider. Studio time costs money. So are you hiring a voice actor who has their own studio, or do you need to acquire a studio? Engineer time, editing, a director. Do you have a director, or are you going to do it yourself? Casting director is a separate role as well. Or you can do that yourself. Just bear in mind that takes your time to do.
Yes.
So that's a trade-off.
Yes.
You cast it yourself. Okay, cool. Save some money, but it takes time. So budget that in.
As an indie game producer or developer, obviously you wear many different hats as you're developing and producing your video game. Same thing holds true for different studios. So when you look at sound design, right, some people only do sound in terms of the music. Some people only do sound in terms of the audio engineering. You want to find somebody that can work with you, that can be part of the team, that understands your vision. Okay, because ultimately it takes a team. It takes teamwork to make the dream work. And so you're going to make sure that you want to have the right people on your team. Now, granted, with indie developing, more people, it's going to take many hands to do many different functions and roles. But from one indie studio to one indie developer, we understand what that's like.
Absolutely. We're wearing lots of hats,
Yes.
Yeah. So we all can't be experts at everything. So part of that self-knowledge, okay, I'm not good at X or Y. Let's find somebody or partner with somebody who is good at that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
So recording considerations. Do you want a directed session, like where you're on the line with them and telling them, okay, speed it up, or more emotion, or whatever you want to tell them? Or you let the voice actor self-direct? How involved do you want to be with that? Do you want the actors to record separate, independently of each other, or do you want to bring them all together and record in the same place at the same time? It takes more coordination, but you might get that magic between actor one and actor two that you wouldn't get if they were just speaking to a microphone by themselves.
I was just going to say, but you get cleaner takes when it's one versus one. But that's where making sure you have the same director who's part of that process, who can listen and who can hear and interpret, and who can make sure they give direction because they know what the other person did versus what you did. So that way they know how to bridge that gap and how to bridge that distance. So, okay, continue.
Exactly. And additional personnel as well. Those people may cost, so don't forget to factor those in your budget. Do you want to use a traditional studio versus an actor's own studio, like their personal studio at home? A lot of people do that now. It's different than it used to be. So I'm coming to you from my home studio right now, as a matter of fact.
Absolutely. I'm coming to you from my home studio, and I've got the studio. So again, we have many different ways of recording. It's a matter of convenience, right? COVID changed everything, and so we understand that, and we made adjustments. So that's why we're doing Siege hybrid today and then in person tomorrow. So
there you go. Exactly. And something to consider on that is, what is the sound quality you're going to get, and the noise floor in the recording environment. So if somebody says, I've got a home studio, that's great, but what is that? What does that consist of? Is it I'm in the bathroom with my phone recording into the phone? Close the door, so now it's a studio? Or is it actually sound-treated space? And you can hear that in the auditions when you listen
Hmm.
back to them sometimes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So, so consideration for recording. So, how do you find voice actors in the first place? I've got this great game. I need some awesome voice actors to kick it to the next level or to make it come alive. How do I do that? Well, here's a few ways. One, networking. Build your network. It's like Bob was saying just a moment ago. We're all in this together. Build your network. And you'll see the same point on the voice actor side of it when we get to that in just a second.
Yes.
Build your
But again,
network.
that's part of what the Georgia game developers are all about, right? We're all about networking and collaborating together and helping each other. And it just so happens that there's this amazing studio that actually has an amazing roster of talented voice actors for whatever needs you have. The Neighborhood Studio, where we help aspiring creatives become working creatives. No, really, feel free to check out the Neighborhood Studio Atlanta.com website, because you can actually hear the demos of the different talents that we have. And so because we're in Atlanta, it's a working commercial corporate environment as well. We have commercial and corporate demos, and then we also have character demos where you get to hear that kind of expressiveness that you need for video game and animation and anime acting, which is very different from commercial and corporate narration. But again, you're with the GGDA, so that means you're going to be connected to the neighborhood, which means you might not use the neighborhood studio, and that is perfectly all right. But I know people that you can hire that you can rely upon. Again, this entire industry, right? Referrals absolutely matter. If you don't want to work with me, that's perfectly fine. You've got Chris Rickwood from Rickwood Music. You've got Andy Lackey from Wabi Sabi Sound. You've got any number of different studios around town, and we all know one another because, again, we all work together for different projects. So it's perfectly fine for you to work with somebody else. And I'll be the first to recommend Chris Rickwood and, obviously, like I just did, Andy Lackey from Wabi Sabi Sound, because they're geniuses at what they do. They're absolutely amazing. And I would, again, I will use them for when it comes to sound and music and things of that nature. And actually, a few other people whose business cards that I got from the last Georgia Game Developers meeting over at, not the last one, but 2 ones ago from Gwinnett Tech. Met some great sound designers and some great composers who are getting into the industry as well. So again, it's all about networking, which is what the GGDA is about, and that's what Siege is about.
So if you didn't know any voice actors before, now you know 2 of them. You know Bob, you know me. And we each have our own networks of people that we can connect you up with if we can't help you out directly, just like Bob was saying. So start your network with us and build it. That's cool.
Yes.
In addition to that, you could go through an agent or an agency. There's extra cost involved in that, but it takes some of the load off of you. You can hire a casting director. Again, it costs more. It could save you some time, but then again, you're one step removed from the casting process. So just factor that in. Don't forget to build in time for all the casting process, and then know what to send out for your audition requests. And that brings us to our next slide, which is audition requests.
Yes.
So please put clear and complete information, instructions as to how you want the responses to come back, and a deadline. Things like file specs, file format, the name of the file you want. Do you want people to slate or not? Can they give you multiple takes? Do you want just one take? Things like that. Just think about them ahead of time. Include artwork for the characters, which we'll get to in a second. A voice reference if you have one. And then you might limit the amount that you ask people to read. The longer you give them a script to read, that's more you have to listen to later.
Yes.
So just give them just enough to give you a flavor of the character. Don't give them War and Peace to read. You got some poor sucker out there reading for hours and hours in their booth, sending an audition into you, and you're only going to listen to 5 seconds of it and go, "Oh no, he sounds like my brother-in-law. I hate that guy." Click.
Which has happened, by the way. It happens, and it has happened,
and probably will again.
I understand.
Yeah, so
assuredly.
Just be selective. Choose some key lines.
Yes.
Don't forget the context, and that will lessen the workload on you when you're selecting.
Yes.
use clear directions. So this one, I reached out to some voiceover friends, and I think we talked about this the other day. Sometimes the direction you get is not clear. So as the person communicating to the voice actors and the casting directors and whatever else, use clear directions. So here's some examples of what not to do, and you'll see why. The script says, this weekend only, big sale, but the direction is friendly and conversational, not an answer at all. So those two are opposite of each other. Technical, heavy tech language, but make it conversational, like you're talking to a friend. Edgy, calm, with a Henry Rollins, Bob Newhart vibe. RP, but not too British.
Wait. Also, let's go back to that one with a Henry Rollins, Bob Newhart vibe. Again, depending on your generation, you might not know who Henry Rollins and Bob Newhart are, right? So you've got to realize when you're giving direction what comparisons you want to make. Okay, you got to make sure that you talk about that, and you understand that when it comes to voice acting, when it comes to game development, right? Who's involved in the process? Who are these people that they're using as a reference? And that's something that absolutely matters. Also, if it's global, video games are made now globally. And so if someone is using a great Polish actor as a reference, but you don't watch Polish cinema, that's a problem, right? If they're using a K-pop boy band or a J-pop boy band, but you have no idea of what K-pop or J-pop is, that's a problem. So it's something that you got to make sure that you relate to. Okay.
Exactly. And that goes back to provide a voice reference. So if you want Henry Rollins, fantastic. Provide a link to something that he has recorded, and even if they have no clue who that is, they can listen and go, oh, I need to sound like X and Y.
Right.
The picture's worth 1,000 words. That translates to an audio example in this case.
Yes.
Here's one, RP, but not too British. So RP is received pronunciation. It's by definition British. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, but you say that to me, and I'm like, role play, but not too British. Okay. Again, we all have our own personal internal references.
That's exactly a great point, because unless you're a voice and accent nerd, hello, you might not.
Yes.
You might not know what RP is, particularly if you're not from the UK. But that is a particular British accent called received pronunciation. It's a upper crust, often called posh, you know. So you can't do an RP accent if you can't be British. Anyway,
I love it.
More energy, but also chill. And then read faster, but sound slower.
Oh,
I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
And last but not least, here's one. This is the note sent from the middle management there. The editor says, we have no idea what it means to be not too American sounding, and neither did the client. But just do your best. So anyway, this is it's fun, but it's real. This is real stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay. Auditions. Be prepared to receive a lot of them. And you can mitigate that by just sending out select invitations and limit your pool to draw from. But also communicate how you want to receive them. Make sure you allow enough time to review them. It's probably going to take longer than you think, particularly if you haven't done a lot of casting. And you may need multiple rounds. I need to narrow this down to 10 from 100 and focus in.
Or even 300 or 400, because again, for some of the games that we produce and for some of the games that we cast, because we cast from the neighborhood studio, I promise you it's going to be a lot of fun. We will literally have, it's almost like it's a watch party, but it's a listening party, because you want to make sure that you get comfortable. You want to put on your pajamas or your like kick at home pants. You get your food, your drinks, your snacks, and then we all listen to the audio together, and it's fun. And it's funny, and it's interesting, and it's interactive. It is a closed, confidential party, because a lot of inappropriate comments will always be made. But it will always be made. But it's a look, because you're looking for the right voices for your game, and so you have to understand that it's going to be. Usually, you're going to block out 3 hours at least 2 to 3 hours for good quality audition reviews. So again, call it a party and plan accordingly, like 2 or 3 different nights out of your week for 3 to 4 weeks for that casting process. Because again, you want to make sure that you're bringing the best that you can for your game or for whatever that project is that you've got. Okay.
Yeah, so just looking at the time, we're kind of pressed here, but there's so much good information. One last thing on auditions is a request to communicate back to the actors who took the time to build an audition for you, at least to say, hey, thanks, we got your audition. We selected somebody else. We appreciate it. Just use the same note for everybody, but just let them know. So selecting. Which voice is right for the character? That's what you're ultimately after, the right voice for the right character. Something to consider, perhaps your actor choice could, choice for actor can do several characters.
And they generally will, because you want to make sure that you're giving them a good budget. And so you want to make the most of that time for that 2-hour minimum. If you've got somebody in the booth for 2 hours and they can do several different voices, you're going to make sure that you do several different voices. Now, you don't want to blow their voice out if it's all yelling and roaring and monster noises and sounds. You've got to make sure that you respect the talent and that you appreciate what they've done and what they're going to do in terms of what hoops they're going to jump through for you and for your voice. Now, I've got a monstrous voice, but I also have taken years, decades to develop my voice. Other voice actors cannot do the same things that I can do. So you have to realize that. And most of the time you might not, but that's where a director really matters and makes a difference, because they help give you the best performance you can get from that actor, but they also protect the actor's voice. And you have to protect that actor's voice because you don't want to end their career based on one random roar that might just get left off on the cutting room floor.
Yep. And as for the voice actors out there, if you get cast for something and there's going to be screaming or shouting in battle, incoming, or whatever, you might ask them if you could record that at the end. And
definitely,
generally, they'll be amenable to that.
Yes, usually that will happen. Also, I will go ahead and throw in a quick plug-in for Thomas Tren, who is a specialist in, oh my gosh, why am I going blank on it? Like metal, like heavy metal singing, and it's based on not the Tibetan monks. It's based on, what's the monks, Ian? I'm going blank right now talking about this. Anyway, there's a special way that you want to strengthen your voice. Yes, thank you. So Thomas Tren teaches that from the Neighborhood Studio, but also Ian has certain circles and that sort of thing. But you want to make sure you are taking care of your voice and for the throat. Okay.
Excellent. So consider using one actor for multiple characters. That will help you with your budget. Because you can fit all of those perhaps into one session. I hate even saying this because it's really on my last nerve, but do you want to use a known on-camera actor in your game? So as a voice actor, I've been excluded from projects because, we're going to use named people. Really? I mean, what am I, chopped liver over here? But there's a Mario movie coming out, and they've selected Chris Pratt to play over Charles Martinet, the guy who's been doing it for 20 years or something. And the poor guy's out on his behind, and in comes this Hollywood actor who's already got loads and loads of money and doesn't need it. So I just think it's a bit unfair. That said, business decisions happen, and they will do that for the name recognition.
You have to. So, I mean, it's a balance. It's a fine line, and so that's where you want to make sure that you surround whatever the on-camera actor might be with incredible talent around them to make sure that they bring their performances up. Whoever you choose, obviously, you want it to fit your game. You want that voice to fit your game for whoever they are. But whoever you choose, you want to make sure that you give the on-camera actor the direction and the detail that they need to give their best performance, and then you want to make sure that you give them the support that they need. And when I say support, the other talent, the other voice actors that are going to be a part of that project.
And don't forget that on-camera acting and voice acting are not the same. Just because you're an on-camera actor or a stage actor doesn't mean that those skills translate directly to voice acting. There is some overlap, but it's not the same. Last bit on this is, does your voice actor have their own studio? Or do you need to acquire a studio to record them in? Self-directing, or do they need your time to be there to direct them? And then who's going to record? Who's going to engineer that? Who's going to edit everything? Those are questions to consider. When you're selecting the actor, if you know they've got a home studio, you may even put that as part of your specs. We want you to have a home studio of X quality.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be part of your selection criteria. So jump into the voice acting side. We've got 15 minutes left. An overview of the process of auditioning. Okay, so first, you acquire auditions. How do you do that? Hey, networking. We talked about that before. They say, success is not what you know, it's who you know. I think sometimes it might be who knows you. So
Absolutely.
Get your name out there and network. You can do direct marketing for that as well. Do you want to have an agent or not? There's pluses and minuses with that. And there are casting sites that you can pay a subscription to be a part of. Those have pluses and minuses as well. Some of them are not ethical, and some of them will lowball the crap out of you.
Stay off of Fiverr.
Oh my God. Don't get me started. What do you know? Yeah.
That's right.
What do you know from casting? Huh? Yeah. So as an actor, you're going to be interpreting and creating voices. You have to have the technical skills to record and edit and that sort of thing. And then once you send it in, fire and forget. Don't worry about it. You sent the audition in and let it go. As sure as I'm sitting here saying that, I can't do that very well. It's hard. Because you put
I'm laughing till I cry because especially Ian, he never forgets.
Yeah.
Yes,
so,
you have to protect your psyche. All right. You want to remember you are amazing. You are incredibly talented. You are a wonderful, incredible, brilliantly talented creative with a capital C. But as soon as you fire off that audition, you have got to forget. Okay. And remember, in the voiceover superstore, anytime we go grocery shopping, we're going to the grocery store for a specific purpose. All right. Again, you will not buy out the entire grocery store every time you go to the voiceover supermarket. They're not going to need your voice every time they send out an audition. So don't get discouraged. All right. If you didn't get an audition, it's okay. Just trust in the fact that at least you're getting invited to the party. As long as you're getting invited to the party, eventually you're going to get a piece of cake. Eventually you're going to get to go off the diving board, depending on the party, right? So understand that, accept that, and just continue swimming. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. All right.
And I had a coach tell me one time, even if you don't get the audition, that person who's making that decision is probably has other projects going in the back of their head that might go, oh, this person doesn't work here, but they'd be perfect for this other thing I'm doing. So
that coach was brilliant. Whoever told you that coach was brilliant because it's all about laying the foundation. Remember, every time you send out your audition, someone somewhere is hearing your voice. They are hearing your greatness. So remember that. It doesn't matter if it's not even the production director. It might be an intern today who creates one of the biggest games of the century next year. And they will always remember the amazing accent that they heard Ian O'Donnell give on just the right amount of Irish Celtic Druid that this person needed, yet at the same time had that level of wisdom, but also had that fire in their gut and a sense of humor. So they were the perfect leprechaun king in their mind for their video game that they were working on. And then 5 years later, when they've finally got this $1 million budget, they can go back and hire Ian. Things like that happen, and they will continue to happen. So you've got to make sure that you are laying the foundation. Anytime you're sending out that audition, trust in yourself, trust in your ability that you will constantly improve and you will constantly, again, be memorable. Okay? You don't care about just one job. You care about the relationship for years to come.
And sure, you don't cross the Leprechaun King.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so before auditioning, what are you going to do? Get some good coaching and training and practice.
Yes.
Take what you learn in the coaching sessions and practice. Get your recording equipment. Get it all set up. Get your home studio, however you're going to work that. Treat the space sound-wise. A couple of other things to consider, demo reels and an agent or representation. Probably not the first thing. Get your coaching. get your foundational stuff. Build your foundation to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Character voice creation. Oh, this is going to be a... You know what? We have 10 minutes left. Why don't we just skim this section and then jump to the dialogue script competition stuff? What do you think?
Yeah, I think, you know what? I think the dialogue script competition would be perfect as an example, because I happen to know for a fact that the person that designed this one game called the Legacy, that's so cool. It's such a really, really cool concept. I think we should apply what we're learning right now to that. Like, let's say we've got this character voice creation, and it's for this video game called The Legacy.
Yeah,
right?
Let's do that.
Yes.
Yes,
All right,
and
exactly. So there was this game called The Legacy, and okay, I'm gonna Ian, tell us about The Legacy. Yeah, go ahead and we'll skim through it.
Okay, so
yes, we talked
I can't
about
do both at the same time.
So these are different types of characters, and you want to make sure that you're bringing your personality out. And just like a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? When you see that picture, when it comes to your voice, it's not just your words that you're using; it's the nonverbals that absolutely make a difference. It's the she's so amazing. It's the sigh of love and wistfulness that comes out. It's the, I'm going to tear you limb from limb. It's the growl that comes before you say it, right? It's the nonverbals that will add to all of those lines. It's the sigh of sadness, and then the tremor in the voice of depression. Whatever it is that you're going to bring to the line, make sure you bring your emotion to that. Remember, communication is 80% body language, and if we can't see you on camera, that means that other 20% really needs to be expressive in terms of your vocal tones and your vocal range, and also the context of your words. So absolutely go big. Make sure you have an understanding of the terminology and the etiquette. Again, make sure you pay attention to the GVAA rate guide. Make sure you check out neighborhoodstudioatlanta.com, where we help aspiring creatives become working creatives, and we got an amazing roster of talent. And now we're also going to talk about The Legacy.
The Legacy. So the game dialogue competition required you to write a script that presented the player with choices. So there were you had to have two choices and connect them all together. The Legacy. This is so out of order.
No problem. So here we go. There we go.
So this is the script, and it's too small to see on the screen. But at the top, you'll see it sets the stage, sets the scene, and then the primary character, in this case, it's the Ancient One, who is a ghostly figure in robes, sage-like and timeless. He floats near a series of glowing stones in an ancient underground chamber. Torchlight flickers, casting eerie shadows, and the Ancient One speaks, and that's kind of sets the scene.
Absolutely.
So you gather a lot of information there, and we'll have that in a slide in just a second. So he speaks. You can see his line there. The player has three choices. After that, there are three different lines that the Ancient One character speaks. And then he sets another choice for them. They have to choose from that, and he has a line responding to each of them, which is different. Each of the choices, which is different. Here's some artwork to go with that. There's a cave with glowing portals, and then here's a piece of art of the Ancient One.
An ancient sage.
And
now, here's also where we should talk about the plugin in terms of bringing your vision to life, right? We've got all the AI stuff happening right now with Midjourney and DALL-E and Dallas and all that stuff. This is the Cave of Wonders. Absolutely beautiful. Like you said, you set that scene in our imaginations, and then you brought it to life using the artwork, and then the Ancient One. Show that picture.
It's back here. There. So, in case you didn't catch that, Bob's kind of teasing me a bit because I wrote the script and entered it into the competition.
And we didn't know this, by the way. We did not know this. It was a completely blind competition. So when we all read the the scripts that we saw, we were like, oh, this looks interesting. That looks cool. Okay, yeah, we like this one. And I had no idea that Ian had entered this in the competition until after the finalists were named. It
Yeah,
was a truly
I didn't
blind.
tell
Yeah.
anybody. Um, but in trying to pull together some artwork, I used this artificial intelligence bot called Midjourney to create that cave and also to create the old one, the ancient one, the old man
Hmm.
image. Um, so, what information can we get from this? This is the setting the scene. So, as the actor, we're gathering information to determine what the voice sounds like. So, he's
Hmm.
ancient, he's old, timeless, he's like a sage. That's the knowledgeable person, not the spice. He's ghostly and floating, so some mysterious something about him, and he's wearing robes.
Ethereal.
Maybe he's, yeah, that's a great word. Maybe
Yes.
he's some sort of a wizard or something, and there are glowing
Hmm.
stones, so there's magic involved. So we gathered this
Absolutely.
information from those two sentences there. We look at the script. You read through the script, and you can see that this ancient one has knowledge of the player's father, of the history of the situation, and that there's limits in place. I can only do certain things as the ancient
Now,
one.
from a casting standpoint, as I look at this, right, from a director standpoint, I see this. I'm like, okay, we need 3 voices. We need number 1, an ancient one, actually possibly 4. We may or may not have a male or a female voice. Now, the image that we had was for the male, but if we decide to go some kind of a Tilden Swint route, or if we go with more of a gender fluid combination of genders, because it's some kind of a supreme being where it's male and female, and we're going to overlay those sounds, so that way we can have a greater range of vocal diversity. It would be really cool. And then you want to make sure that you've got different players as well. So a possible older player and a younger player, or a male and a female version, to give more player agency in your video game, right? Or to give cultural representation, depending on how broad you want to make your game. Some indie game companies and studios have said, hey, because we're going to release this globally, but we can't afford the possibly 10 different language dubs that we're going to do, we're going to make it a false language, and then we're just going to close caption everything. And that's when you get games like Ori. So when I did Ori, and actually there's been like a couple of sequels for Ori, but again, it's a made up language, right? And then the captions right here are included. But again, it's also what sounds do you want for those voices, and that's where you're bringing that to life. So now you've got this process from this flow chart. Keep
Right.
going,
So
Ian.
we've got a bit of knowledge there. Let me get back to my other screen, and then looking at the next bit of script, we can gather more
Yes.
information. Okay, thanks, Andrew. So there's more knowledge here. So there's the lore about the stones and the portals, and there's also mention of the bloodline. So there's some lineage that
Mm-hmm.
is referred to but not fully explored. So gathering information, we found these bits about the character. We found some information about the situation. The player's father is
Yep.
involved or was involved.
So
And
emotionality in terms of a backstory, in terms of the passion, the drives.
right, and looking at the picture's worth 1,000 words. The picture of the ancient one, he looks human, but we're not sure of his ethnicity. So
Mm-hmm.
that's open. There was no spec in the audition for that, so we don't know. It leaves it up to us. If the location had been something like a cave complex in the hinterlands of Scotland or something, it might be a bit more Scottish. Or if it were in the Himalayan mountains or something, he might be old, but then he might have a little bit more of an Indian accent too, So you could flavor the voice by the location, which it wasn't there, so it's open. The gender, it kind of looks male, but like Bob
Right.
said, you could change that. The age range clearly is older. And then what's his expression? Based on his expression, maybe some personality insight is there.
Mm-hmm.
And that could flavor how he or they talk. All right, so with those pictures in mind, I might ask a voice actor to read just a few lines, not the whole script, just a few lines to, whoops, what happened here? Jumping back on me. Just a few lines to give me an idea of what they sound like and what they would sound like in the character if they were cast. So, If this were live, we could bring some volunteers up now and ask them to read for us. But since we can't, we'll have to skip that part. And
Actually, I think we're going to see it in the next hour because you actually have this game developed with Dove, right? And you actually recorded the Ancient One's lines. So we've got your voice for the Ancient One, and then we've got two different voices from the studio that we had them record live from the Speakeasy this past Wednesday night. Every month we have a weekly Speakeasy where we take on different projects. Andrew was part of the Speakeasy this past Wednesday, but we have different voices. So that way the people who created the games were able to actually hear their words to life. And so you guys are going to get the opportunity to hear that in the next hour with this game that Ian developed. Actually, this is a Shamrock Creative special, right?
That's right. Exactly.
This is great.
So we have some sound embedded here. I don't know if it'll come through or not. Let's see.
I can't reveal which
Yes.
path your father took, only that he came this way.
So you hear the age, you hear the pacing, the little gravel underneath everything, vocal fry, if you will. But and there's also a bit of accent there, not a full-on accent, but enough that it doesn't sound Midwestern or Southern or California, dude.
Ian, can you play a couple of the player responses just so we can get samples of the choices from the players?
Yes, absolutely. So let's say the player chooses response number 1. What if I take the wrong portal?
But what if I take the wrong portal? I may never find him.
And
Very
the
nice.
Ancient One would respond there by saying,
Though I may not advise you as to your path, use your wits and skills, and they may see you through.
But what
So-
if they choose a different player response?
oh, I wonder. So let's say in the beginning of the game we had a character choice where they could choose, say, male or female,
Yes.
or maybe a series of voices. Building that in is going to mean more voice actors, by the way, but it's very cool. So here's response number 1 from a different voice actor.
But what if I take the wrong portal? I may never find him.
Very nice. Perfect example.
Yeah. So, and the whole thing is laid out like that with, following the dialogue tree and which choices they choose. So, and once they make the second choice, it goes on to a different part of the game, different module in the game, like
Yes.
choosing the portal or searching the area to find some trace of the father or something like that.
Mhm.
So, in the time that we have left, it might be worthwhile to jump. Oh, did I lose my connection?
No, you're here. I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Discord's held up on me. Okay. Well, if you can still hear me, that's cool. I was thinking it might be good to jump back to our tips section to give people some cool tips to take with them.
Sure. But the cool part is we're going to see this game resolved in the next hour because Ian is going to continue as part of Dove's presentation with how to actually build this in-game using Twine, which is, again, another feature that the GGDA brings to you from Siege, where we actually walk you through how to make these games. It's very cool. Very cool process. But hey, what tips and ideas do we have, Ian?
Tips and ideas. We have a few for you. So for the developer side, some of these might be reminders that you've seen before, but just reemphasize. Have a good idea of what you want. Communicate that well, as specifically as you can. Provide the artwork. And had you seen that part of our presentation, you would have seen us using artwork to clue us in on how to create a voice, how the character stands, how they express themselves, anything like that. Personality. Provide a voice reference if you can, and even collaborate with voice actors because they're creatives too. You might get some good
Yes.
stuff.
Absolutely.
Don't forget to include voice in your schedule and plan for it. It takes time to cast. You don't want to wait till the last minute. Oh, I need all the voices by today at 5 p.m. You won't
Yeah.
have time to make the best choices for your game. And that's what you want is a good quality product in the end. So don't rush yourself. And don't forget that editing takes time too. If
Absolutely.
you have to re-record something, that's going to add a whole other iteration to that. So, and the better you can have your script to start with, and the better the direction is during the recording process will help.
Hmm.
Don't forget your other stuff, sound effects, music, and so forth.
Absolutely. So, for instance, for the game narrative competition, I was only given those screenplays. I was only given those flow charts. And so it was up to me to find the right voices, have those voice actors audition and record themselves, then choose the ones that had the cleanest quality, sound quality when they submitted their auditions, and the ones that gave the best performances. And then I also made sure, for purposes of this competition, that I included some royalty approved music that I went ahead and included for the background. Ian, I hope you got a chance to hear the two choices that I submitted for you for the different caves for the background. Did you hear that?
No, I was not aware of that. I got just the two player response voices. That's it.
Also, go back to the Google Drive then, because I made sure that I included some of the audio for the background sound for you. So I'm pretty sure Dove
Okay.
saw it and he'll have it, but make
Okay.
sure you go in and just click on it and listen to it for yourself.
Yeah. So as Bob said earlier, the audio is such a big part of it, and that includes background music, that includes sound effects, and so forth. Be clear with your scripts. Provide the context, please. It's helping you, actually. Helps you get a better result when the actor has
Yes.
more info to go on. Have someone proofread, and don't go cheap on the voice acting. Budget appropriately so you can have good quality voiceover in your game.
Absolutely. What is it when it comes to sales? You get there are three main
Yep.
components, right? There's budget, quality, and speed.
Yep.
You get to choose, and time, right? So you get to choose two out of those three.
Yep. You want
Right?
good, fast, or cheap? Pick two.
Yes.
Yeah. So voice actors, here's a few tips for you. We didn't spend much time on voice acting, unfortunately, but as much as we would like to. But don't be afraid to move around. Just be sure you stay on the microphone. So, can you still see me in the game?
You've been frozen, but
Frozen?
what that means is I can move all around. I can lambada. I can do whatever kind of like twerking I'm doing right now. I look absolutely amazing. But notice how my head is staying right by the microphone. Oh yeah.
Exactly.
But motion creates emotion. Okay. I just don't want to hit the microphone like this because you can hear all that. But motion creates emotion. And so, yeah, you're going to move. You're definitely going to move.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Watch out. No loud clothes, no bumping the mic like I just did. Watch out
Yep.
for jewelry. Keep the jewelry off.
Yep.
Who's going to see
And-
you?
Yeah, have fun with it, and let yourself go.
Unless they're doing the facial capture recognition, because they've started doing that now for video
That's-
games.
That's different.
Right, exactly. But you make sure you keep your camera off, because most of the time you're going to be sweating in the booth. Most of the time I have my camera off when I'm coaching and teaching and stuff like that, because you're hot in the booth. So you're going to be down the t-shirt and shorts or underwear, whatever, but you are going to give your best performance possible on the microphone, right? You're going to do what you need to do to give that best performance. And that means you're going to have to go big.
Right. So you can always come back. If you don't go big in the beginning, the director may not realize how big you can go.
Yep,
So
that
you can
absolutely happens.
Always pull it back. We talked about vocal health earlier. That's just another reminder for that. It's easier said than done to let the role go if you don't get it.
I love that you put that in there.
Yeah. Well, it's true. But
Yes.
but still, it does. I mean, I think any voice actor, being honest, would say that you put your heart and soul into an audition and it gets no response whatsoever. That's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
rude, actually.
Yeah, yeah. It's like dating. Don't get ghosted, right?
Yeah.
We say that, but it happens. So all you can do is you can trust that you're laying that foundation. Remember that. You make sure that you've got the confidence in yourself. And if you don't have that confidence, then that's where you follow up with me and Ian, because we have been there. We have more experience than you, so we can at least commiserate and we understand your pain. Other people won't know your pain, but we know your pain.
That's right. So just like getting started in any new field or group, get the terminology down and the etiquette down. So when you go in to record, don't mess with the audio equipment. Don't grab the microphone. Don't put your headphones on the mic. I mean, just don't.
Yeah.
And be ready to go when it's time. Leave your phone outside, all those things. And be nice. Be nice to people.
Absolutely.
You don't want them to say, "Oh, that guy had a great voice, but he was kind of a jerk." Let's not call him back next time. Don't be that guy. Here's some resources for you with links. The GVAA rate guide is good for both game developers and casting folks, as well as voice actors. If you're not sure what to charge for a particular gig, this is a good place you can check. Radio Garden is awesome to hear a variety of accents, dialects, and so forth from all over the globe.
Yeah, it's worldwide radio. It's amazing.
It's very, very cool. And when you go to check it out, save some time for it, because it's a rabbit hole you can go down. But you can hear live radio from all over the world. It's very cool. And then terminology for voiceover is an article here that has some good foundational things. And last but not least, your coaches. Your coaches will help you with some of that stuff. So get the terminology down so that you know what you're talking about. You sound like a pro. You'd be surprised how much that can affect your relationship with the casting director, the engineer, and whoever else.
Mm-hmm. Strive for excellence, not perfection. Look, if you're getting started in voiceover, do not put the pressure on yourself that goes along with being a perfectionist, because we all have that analysis paralysis, or we can all get bogged down and get into our own heads. Look, we've all got mental junk. I'll be the first to raise my hand for that. Okay. So that's why I'm very open about it. My ADD, everybody that knows me knows, I've got ADD and chaos all around me all the time. I'm also a workaholic, which is a good thing because I love what I do. But that's why I game therapy. That is my, that's my therapy. So feel free to always contact us. If we don't respond right away, it's not because we're big timing you. It's just because we're busy, but feel free to follow up and text us as well. Okay. Because you want to make sure you're breaking through people's bubbles of busy, and until you do that, then they're not necessarily going to respond to you. It's not that they don't like you. It's just that they don't know. They don't recognize all the stuff that you're dealing with. We appreciate the fact that you took the time out of your busy day to watch us this evening. Thank you very, very much on such a beautiful, perfect Saturday evening for hanging out with me and Ian. We really appreciate your time today. And Ian.
Yes, absolutely. I hope that this was helpful. We have a lot of fun doing this kind of thing, and we hope that you get some nuggets to take away that will help you. Whether you're a game developer, you're a aspiring voice actor, you're a pro voice actor, whatever. We hope that you take some good stuff away that can help you in your career. And don't forget, you now have a network of at least 2, and that we can put you in touch with other people so you can take advantage of our networks as well. So don't be afraid to reach out. You can reach us at the locations on screen there, and feel free to do that. And we are both members of the GGDA, so you may find us at an event in the future, like the one that's coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight or tomorrow in Doraville. So
that's right.
Yeah. Look for us there, and drop in just to say hi. If nothing else, just say hi, and let us know what you thought about the presentation.
And please let us know that you watched this tonight. Make sure you tap me on the shoulder, get my attention, and say, hey, I watched you guys last night. I appreciate that. We appreciate you hanging with us on a Saturday evening. I mean, come on, it's gorgeous outside, and here you are watching us. This is amazing. Thank you. And Ian, thank you so much for this organization. This presentation is phenomenal, man. This PowerPoint, really good stuff. It's really good.
It represents a large time investment.
Absolutely. It's labor intensive. And then you even put the sound in your video game like that. And I mean, that's there's a lot that goes into that. And so now we get to see the video game on the development side coming up here in about 15 minutes. Is that right, Andrew?
Yep, except they're going to have to go into the workshop for it. That will not be live streamed so that people can mess up freely. You have been invited to the live stream. Ian's been invited to the workshop. Ian's been invited to the workshop. We'll share it in our Discord for others to get into. But a great presentation. A lot of requests for your slides. So I don't know if you're willing to share these. This is you can make a book out of this. So I don't know if you want to share the slides, but if you do, folks would love it. And
or they could come to the workshop.
My favorite comment from Jetto: there are more nuggets in this than from McDonald's.
Yes.
That is cool. Thank you.
Yeah, very nicely done. Very nicely done. All right.
Excellent.
Yeah. Check them out in the workshop at 7. We'll share the link if you've already registered. I see that folks are already in the workshop getting ready to go. So that being the case, I will say goodbye to Ian and Bob. Say goodbye, Ian and Bob.
Goodbye, Ian and Bob.
Yeah.
Finally,
Goodbye,
somebody did
boys.
that joke. I've been feeding that line to people all day and nobody's been doing it.